winning. In fact, we won. It's already done. You don't put this thing back in the box. There are more people joining the Bitcoin network each day, every single day, than are leaving it. And that's the real number go up. The amount of people that join the network. And I really don't think we've even got off the starting blocks here. Hold on, like I said, sit on your hands. Expect much higher Bitcoin prices. Here they are. Here come Wall Street. And whether you like it or not, you can't change it. You can't change who's going to sit there and buy Bitcoin. And you can't tell me who's good for Bitcoin, who's bad for Bitcoin. But what you can do on an individual level is stay vigilant, carry on learning, educating yourself, and being ready for these attacks. They're not going to be able to attack Bitcoin, but they are going to be able to attack your conviction. Bitcoin is here. More and more people are finding it each day. Come what may.
Hi, Daniel. How are you doing? Everything fine on your end?
Yeah, very well, mate. Thank you. And yeah, good to catch up again. And congrats on, what is it, a full year podcasting now for you?
It's now a full year plus 1 month of podcasting, and you are my 360th guest. So I'm almost at 365 now.
Wow. Well done. And yeah, thank you for everything that you've done in the past year to help spread this message.
Absolutely. And you were one big inspiration for me. I don't know if you're aware of that, but I think you are the second or the third podcast that had me ever on his show in English. I had one in German and then one in English. And I think you were the third ever podcast that had me as a guest on. So this was kind of my start of putting my face out there. So thank you so much for that also.
Oh, you're welcome, mate. You're welcome. Yeah. I love doing that. All plebs are welcome. I've just had a great interview with Joe Bryan, who's just dropped his What's the Problem presentation video. And it's just amazing that he's had such a impact so quickly. And he'll tell you, that the only reason he stepped into the fold here to get his message across was because he was invited along to a completely unrelated weekend to give a presentation about something that he was passionate about to a group of other friends and individuals. So he gave this presentation and it was really well received. And then he was like, oh, well, now I'm fucked because I've got to show this to everybody and I've got to make this open source. And look what's happened. He presented it at a Bitcoin meetup in Bristol in the UK. Then made an incredible video. He hired a production team to get that out there in the best, most professional way. And he's going to take 2025 by storm, like you took 2024 by storm. And we just need these plebs, this fresh, new kind of creativity, this fresh, new idea. And it doesn't matter if it's a podcast or a YouTube video or a presentation or a song or a dance. Like, bring it. Bring all of it. Bitcoin fiction, actually. That's. Have you been reading any of the Bitcoin fiction books?
Oh, no, I was not even aware of this. Who is writing those?
So I've got a few on my bookshelf behind me. I can grab them in a second. But Avi Bura, he wrote a book called 24. And inside that book actually is a treasure hunt for some Satoshis. He hid a seed word. That's why it's called 24. That was an incredible addition to the Bitcoin book scene in 2024. Then Nicholas Nell, he's written the Nakamoto Consensus, and that's kind of a Jack Reacher style thriller about Satoshi and the formation of Bitcoin, and that was really a really fun read. Bill Aronson released a book called The Cathedral. Doesn't sound as though it has anything to do with Bitcoin, but it's a fictional book about Bitcoin. And it's just great to see that there's a new wave of creativity coming into the space. And Toma Strolite, his book was released by Scott and Mallory at the Shamory team over in the US, Satoshi Nakamoto and his Bitcoin invention. And it's a kid's book, kids fiction. Well, it's not fiction, it's a real story. It's just that the characters are fictional because they're little plushy style characters, in tune with the Shamory characters. So there's all kinds of stuff going on. And in 2025, we'll just see more and more of that.
It's kind of amazing where I'm like, I'm sitting here doing everyday a Bitcoin podcast and I'm trying to get as close to the Bitcoin community as possible. But there's so much more. Like you don't even like you interviewed 360 people and the depth of the community just goes so much deeper and so much wider and you just barely scratch the surface. It's kind of unreal to see how big this community and how deep this community goes and what the community is capable of. I'm amazed.
Yeah, it's crazy. Every time I have a podcast on with somebody that has DM'd me on Twitter and for whatever reason, they've listened to a show and said, I've got something extra to say about that. Oh, and you didn't touch on this and you could have expanded here. I'm like, yeah, I'm new to this subject. So you please come on and tell me more about it. Tell me what we missed and what we should have expanded on. And there's an episode with Red Tailhawk. I've done 2 with him now. I had no idea this guy existed, right? Until he turned up in my DMs. And it turns out he works for Bitcoin mining company, super intelligent guy, really interesting story. And the last episode we did with him, he was talking about ancient lost civilizations, like the Graham Hancock stuff, and how that all fits in with his theory of the poles shifting, and it blows your mind. Absolutely blows your mind. There's so many people in this arena with so many incredible thoughts and stories and experiences that there's no way. People say to me that you're going to carry on with the podcast. I'm like, oh my God, are you kidding? I'm already booked up through March. Like you can't, so many plebs, so little time. And we grow in number every single day.
Absolutely. It's impossible to get to everyone. This was actually one of my concerns. If I can do a daily Bitcoin podcast, I was like, okay, once I get the production done, is there enough interesting people out there? And turns out I can do it 2 or 3 times per day. I cannot do it physically, but I could do it from the guest side. I'm curious. You also talked to so many people. What is kind of your biggest learning from 2024? What was the year 2024 in Bitcoin for you all about?
Wow. The end of year review podcast I did with Bitcoin Mechanic, we went through, actually, and I chose Mechanic to do the end of year because he was one of the leading voices in all of the problems that were going on throughout 2024. So I made a list of things to talk about that we could touch on. So the talking points of 2024. So my response to you, the main takeaway, I'll tell you the main takeaway afterwards. I'll give you the list of the topics of 2024: drive chains, ordinals, inscriptions, BRC20 tokens, timestamps, op returns, filters, knots, datum, covenants, runes, CTV, CAT, spam, ossification, quantum computing, opcode, monetary maximalism, templates, orange check marks, dust, UTXO bloat. There was a shit ton to talk about in 2024. And all of that stuff that I just listed was really negative stuff towards Bitcoin. And here we are, still standing. It's like the gladiator meme, are you not entertained? Whatever was thrown at Bitcoin in 2024 made a few, dents and scratches, caused some big arguments. Some people were calling it block size wars 2.0, an attack on Bitcoin, especially with the spam. So here we are. I think that is the biggest talking point, and I think that's the biggest thing we should be taking away from all of that nonsense that was going on in 2024. And we had the halving. People have forgotten the halving. Right? That was only in April, so that was only just 9 months ago, and it's fresh forgotten. And at that time, there was a shit ton. I mean, do you remember during those first few blocks, fees spiked to like 600, 650 sats per VByte or something? So that was a talking point, a huge talking point. Here we are going into 2025. The narrative is slowly moving away from that whole list of stuff. But what's coming? What's going to be the next attack vector? And we must stay vigilant.
It's interesting, the attack vectors, because there's that like there's every day some attacks on Bitcoin on a small level, on a big level, and we kind of have to be aware of that and at least talk about that. Do you see any dangers in that? Do you see any things with that, especially if more and more institutions come in? A lot of people still fear BlackRock in a big way, or other big companies, even MicroStrategy and other bigger corporations coming into Bitcoin and having more and more influence on Bitcoin, also on the community.
They'll have influence on people, but they won't have influence on Bitcoin necessarily. Like changing Bitcoin, changing the core code of Bitcoin that doesn't happen overnight. Thankfully, that's all baked into the consensus mechanism. But it will influence people, and people. This is why you need to stay vigilant, because yes, corporations are coming in, and there's a bunch of people out there that are going to scream and yell and pound their fists. Bitcoin was not made for these people. We don't want these people. This is not the ethos. Well, tough fucking shit. Here they are. It was always going to happen. Always going to happen. Here they are. Here come Wall Street. And whether you like it or not, you can't change it. And you can't change who's going to sit there and buy Bitcoin. You absolutely can't. And you can't tell me who's good for Bitcoin, who's bad for Bitcoin. But what you can do on an individual level is stay vigilant, carry on learning, educating yourself, and being ready for these attacks in air quotes when they come, because they're not going to be able to attack the Bitcoin network, but they are going to be able to attack your conviction. That's what's coming under attack, and people are going to get shaken out of their Bitcoin, and it's going to be one hell of a shame, because they will be able to move the market. They will be able to add volatility into the market at whim, just because of the amount of liquidity and the amount of power, that buying power or selling power that they have. And now we have options, we have derivatives on top of spot prices. And the only people really be able to control those in any meaningful way are going to be the big institutions again. So if you have institutions that have got a very big position on Bitcoin, 3, 4, 5, 6 months out, whatever that expiry date is, come the time of that expiry date, you're going to have a big institution on one side of it that are thinking, we need this to hit this, finish in the money here. And on the other side, they're going to be thinking exactly the same thing. And they'll be using their power and their liquidity, their buying and selling power in the spot market to try and influence the price. And they'll be using their narratives, because they can get on CNBC and Squawk Box and say whatever they want in mainstream media to try and move the price in certain directions. So we're going to see very choppy waters always in Bitcoin. It's a volatile asset. But people need to understand what's going on, that they're going to have their conviction tested, and it's going to be down to the individual to keep learning about it, to understand fundamentally Bitcoin is going to be just fine. The price is going to go up, the price is going to go down. You've got to figure out how to sit on your hands and get comfortable self-custodying your Bitcoin, not getting over your skis, not getting into ridiculous margin calls and over-leveraging and leveraging your Bitcoin or lending your Bitcoin out to anybody. Like, let the professionals do that, Saylor's going to do that. That's fine. He can do it. He understands it deeply. And no, he probably didn't 5 years ago. I'm sure he's had many advisors in his ear. This is what we do. This is how we do it. Then we do this. Then we do that. Then we split the stock. Then we offer these notes, then convertible bonds, and all of this kind of stuff. They're redefining that side of fixed income, as Preston was talking on my podcast at the end of the year, that they're mining the debt markets, and the fixed income markets, and so are now other corporations. And again, people listening to this are going to say, Bitcoin isn't for corporations. They shouldn't be allowed to buy it. They can't put it on their balance sheet. They're only going to hold it with a third-party custodian. That's not real Bitcoin ethos. Again, doesn't fucking matter, because they're going to buy it anyway, and whether we like it or not. So just staying convicted, diamond hands, and holding your Bitcoin in your possession, self-custodying. That's the main thing. And that's what I think a lot of people really need to get more comfortable with going into the next couple of years, for sure.
Absolutely, yeah. This ethos of Bitcoin is for everyone, even for people we disagree with, even for your worst enemy. Like Bitcoin is truly for everyone. This includes people on the top. This includes all those corporations that we might not like or might like, however you want to see it. One thing you brought up was interesting. CNBC and this how is it called, squat box,
Squawk box, yeah.
and those things. I see a big shift, especially if the presidential election was also already visible, from those traditional media sources to now finally this individual content creators. We saw Donald Trump with that Adrian guy, with that streamer. That shocked me the most. I was not shocked that he was on Joe Rogan and that he was on podcasters, but with that Adrian, that was really Adrian Ross, I think it was his name. That really shocked me that the incumbent system, the traditional system, has to come to individual content creators, to small productions of like 5-10 people, and not to those tens of thousands or thousands of people with CNBCs. And maybe you can also, as a podcaster, talk a little bit about that power shift to the individual that is kind of happening right now.
Yeah, absolutely. 1 second, because I'm just double checking a name here. Because this has been going on for a little while. Yeah, Maxime Bernier. Maxime Bernier he's a member of parliament in Canada. And I remember him coming on John Vallis's podcast back in 2019, 2020, I want to say, to have a discussion. It was all about the same kind of time that Pierre Poilievre in Canada as well was, starting to make some noise in the Houses of Commons, or whatever they call it over there, their parliamentary meetings. So it has been happening for longer than we remember, and it's really like you. I can't believe how quickly. I mean, it's called the Overton window, right? When these policies, these conversations, these narratives become right at the center of policy. That's where the Overton window is, like completely open discussion about it. And for the longest time, what's Bitcoin, 16 years? Out of those 16 years, I mean, the amount of FUD that's been thrown at Bitcoin in that, I mean, it still happens to this day. The Overton window has always been, pretty closed. Nobody wanted to talk about it, not in any particularly rational way, let's say. But now, my God, now you have politicians using it as a way to gain political power and to get votes, and to put it on like the top of their 1, 2, or 3 points that they want to start, talking about when they're out there on the campaign trail. And to see that in the US, that was crazy. I mean, we're no longer fringe politicians like John had back in 2020, but like mainstream, biggest country in the world, like the most powerful country in the world, the world's reserve currency, the United States, openly shilling Bitcoin to potential voters. Wow, shit. We got here so damn quick. Like this is just 16 years in. And as much as Trump, again, look, I have nothing to say about the guy. I have nothing to say about politicians. I think it's all a farce and theater. But here we are. It's on mainstream media. It's getting beamed around the world. Politicians are openly talking about it and using it as an arrow in their quiver, a weapon, a tool to sway certain members of the public. So that tells me that they clearly have data on the way that a certain percentage of the population is thinking about Bitcoin.
Yeah, they have to they have to realize that it's kind of Bitcoin community is at a critical mass point where you can't ignore them anymore. You have to be on one or the other side, and it benefits you a lot if you're on the pro side, and it doesn't benefit you if you're on the con side. On the con side, it benefits you more if you just don't say anything, then you don't make enemies. But yeah, it's an interesting. It's also interesting how all of
Just
a
one
sudden,
second. Where are you? What country are you in?
Austria, the heart of Europe.
Austria. Okay. And have any of your politicians have? I mean, here, the School of Austrian Economics. I mean, is anybody there talking about it?
It's very sad, unfortunately. We have now in Germany finance minister, the no longer finance minister. I don't know what's that word called is the previous finance minister, Christian Lindner, now talking about Bitcoin. On the day he was going out of the German parliament, he was all of a sudden talking about Bitcoin. Now he met in the parliament with some big German content creators. But he does that because there's now a vote, an election happening in February in Germany, a new vote and a new election. So it's interesting how 4 years as a finance minister, he ignored that topic. And this was also in the time where Germany sold this 50K Bitcoin. Not Germany, it was a part of Germany, so it was not directly his thing.
It was Saxony.
Saxony, exactly, yeah. And now to Austria. Austria is usually a little bit slower to innovation. And there was no talk at all in the last elections of Bitcoin. Not at all. Not even about digital assets or new forms of currencies. This was just not a talking point, which really disappointed me. I read all of the election papers, and we have a popular Austrian podcaster, Nico Jilch. You probably know him in Austria, and he got through the work of requesting position papers of all parties in Austria and trying to figure out what is their position to Bitcoin. And I can summarize that in one sentence, his 1 hour long video. It's sad. it's they have all positions, and you can imagine, okay, they are like the innovation friendly position, and then they're like the environment concerned positions, but it's all not really informed opinions. It's more like political roles. So it's kind of sad to see. I hope that changes. I hope this reverses at some point. We also in Austria got rid of the if you hold Bitcoin over 1 year, you don't have to pay taxes. We had that rule. We don't have it anymore since 2021. So I'm not a big fan of where we're going politically in the Bitcoin department. I have a lot of hope where we directionally go politically in general, but not in the political department. It's just not a discussion point. I don't know how is this with you?
Yeah, I saw Chris CoinJoined Chris from Cedar. He tweeted, "There's a picture of him. The former German finance minister might not be a Bitcoiner yet, but I handed him Lynn Alden's broken money. So let's see." He's got that book in his hands, and it's good to see that the German plebs, they're great. Those guys, they are very well organized. Sorry to lay a stereotype on them, but yeah, they're organized. They're organized. They're committed. They are just an incredible like fraternity of Bitcoiners over there, brothers and sisters, all working together. Because when you look at, I think somebody tweeted this out as well, like the amount of German Bitcoin meetups, like it's all over the country. It's great to see. And you have Rachel over there. She's English lady working for TerraHash. So she lives in Germany, and she goes around and they have meetings all over the country with corporations that are interested in how could our business mine Bitcoin, and what would it mean for our balance sheet? So those kind of conversations are taking place. Excuse me. And there's a bank there. I can't remember the name of the bank.
Volksbank Bayern Mitte.
Right.
with I think with Joe. I think you mean it, right?
Yep. Joe Martin, was that right?
Yeah, Joe
Yep.
Joe Martin with Volksbank, and they are embracing Bitcoin. They host the biggest, one of the biggest German speaking Bitcoin events soon. I think like May or maybe August. I don't know exactly the date, but somewhere this year with over 1,000 participants, and they're doing education. They are Bitcoin, not crypto. You can buy Bitcoin with them. They are partnered up with an Austrian Bitcoin only exchange, 21 Bitcoin.
Mhm.
Like they're really going into Bitcoin, and there's a lot of positive things happening in the German speaking area in Bitcoin, but not on the political level.
Yeah. Well, it will happen. It's inevitable. And this is, I think, as well, one thing we do focus a lot on the negative stuff. And, rightly so, because you have to be, like I said, you've got to remain vigilant and you've got to see where the attacks are coming from. But it's nice to step back every now and then and just take a breath and, like, you know what? Wow, we're winning. In fact, we won. It's already done. That you don't put this thing back in the box, right? There's no way. This is out. And there are more people joining the Bitcoin network each day, every single day, than are leaving it. And that's the real number go up. The amount of people that join the network. The price is one thing, but more people are using Bitcoin there'll be more people using Bitcoin joining the network tomorrow than there are today. There won't be less. And that will be true for the day after, and the day after that, and the day after that. So, inevitable. And people like yourself doing your podcasts, putting yourself out there. We need another 1,000 of you. We need another 1,000 of me. We need another 1,000 of Joe. We need another 1,000 of Chris handing these books out. One great big project that was put together by Orange Pill app, actually. I think it was 23. They did this stunt. I think there's 543 congressmen and women in the US. They each got a copy of the Bitcoin Standard, courtesy of Orange Pill app. And that was an incredible thing to see when Congressman Massey came out and started talking about having read the Bitcoin Standard, yada, 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 and quoting it. And then he went on Stave's podcast, like things like that. Like, this is how we do it. It's grassroots stuff. It's pleb work, but it's also the peaceful option, right? What's the other option here? Just march on our respective parliaments and try and turn them out and turf them out, and then vote somebody else in that's just going to do exactly the same. That's not going to work.
Were we last year maybe a little bit too focused on politics, especially with Trump and all those things? It feels like Bitcoin has got distracted.
Yeah, I think so. For sure. And then a lot of the narrative in the media was about the price running up to $100,000 purely because Trump got elected. Well, a load of nonsense. Right, okay. All right, maybe retail got a little bit, hot on the back of it, and maybe some people in institutions saw that as kind of a risk-off metric. But really, we all know what happens if you've been about Bitcoin long enough. Like I said, the halving was in April. Every year, there's every cycle when the halving happens. Anytime 9 to 16 months after that is when the supply shock is realized in the market, and that's when the bull run will start to happen. And I really don't think we've even really got off the starting blocks here. So yeah, hold on. Like I said, sit on your hands. Expect much higher Bitcoin prices. But like I said, expect more manipulation as well.
I partnered up with Coin Vigilante. This is the most beautiful Bitcoin timepiece that I ever saw created by anyone. Look at that beauty. I love it so much. Coin Vigilante made a perfect Bitcoin watch. That's the perfect, subtle, elegant way to go out there and show that you are a Bitcoiner. And that watch brand is Bitcoin only. And Coin Vigilante just dropped a completely new and amazing Genesis edition of their watch collections. You have the date of the first ever mined Bitcoin block in there. And of course also the block height and which epoch we are currently in. I love the level of detail they put in this masterpiece. And make sure to check out those amazing Coin Vigilante timepieces down in the descriptions. I love those watches so much. If you watch or listen to my podcast on a regular basis, I guess you already bought some Bitcoin. And now the most important step is to keep the Bitcoin. Keep them secure in a hardware wallet. My personal recommendation for hardware wallet is the BitBox. It's super secure, it's simple to set up. It's also a perfect gift for a friend who has still their Bitcoin on an exchange. And you can get a 5% discount with the code Robin at the checkout. Visit bitbox.swiss/Robin to get your BitBox. And the next step is to really level up your sovereignty as an individual. You have to have the most secure self-custody setup. You have to secure your own devices. You have to protect your privacy. You have to set up an inheritance plan. And depending on where you live, you even want to have a plan B, a citizenship where you can move in case something goes really wrong. And through all those steps, the Bitcoin way is guiding you through step by step. And if you visit thebitcoinway.com/partners/Robin, you even get a 30-minute free call to find out how you can level up your sovereignty.
Absolutely, yeah. It's so fascinating how Austria had the same exact thing. They said basically in the news, oh, Bitcoin is going up that much and it's because Trump.
Yeah.
that was literally the 1 minute segment they did on the Austrian mainstream news, and it feels like it's in every country the same thing reported. It almost seems like coordinated. I don't know if it's coordinated or they're just riding from each other and they just, I don't know, in the same circles. But it definitely feels feels like that.
Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely. One thing I actually wanted to start off with that question, but how has Bitcoin filled your life with more freedom? How has Bitcoin impacted your life? I remember when we last spoke, we talked a lot about that with me. So I was like, maybe it's interesting to get the other side in here.
Yeah, it takes away it's kind of a weird thing, paradoxical thing to say, because Bitcoin is volatile, right? If you look at the price, that's volatile. But in the other hand, it takes the volatility away from your future, because just by holding Bitcoin and understanding and having the conviction in Bitcoin and knowing that over time your purchasing power is going to go up, your worries melt away about the future. Whereas if everything that you own is in a fiat currency that is being debased every second of every single day, your future plans are completely up in the air. You have no idea. Like you can't make long lasting decisions. You can't think about, like a long-lasting project. Let's say somebody, I'm not doing this personally, but a lot of people are, they're moving house. Well, we have done that actually, but they'll be moving house, they'll be buying land, they'll be thinking about 10, 15, 20 years down the line. Whereas before it's like, just get up, get through the next day, and let's get to the weekend. That's living the fiat life. Living the Bitcoin life is like, right, we'll do this for this decade. We'll put these things in place. We need to get here to there, to there, to there. This is what we need to do. And you can start actually planning and thinking clearly. And that is the superpower of Bitcoin. It lowers your time preference and it gives you the ability to plan into the future, because your purchasing power is going to be higher in 10 years' time than it is today. And that is something none of us have ever experienced before. And having that feeling is life-changing, of course. It's a complete U-turn. That does come with problems, because all of a sudden you could be... I don't think this is talked about enough, actually. I remember doing an interview with Gigi, or Gigi, back in 2020. And we got into a rabbit hole of how Bitcoin can negatively affect relationships. You've got a married couple, for example. One of them is down the rabbit hole big time, big time. The other one refuses to go in. But the person in the rabbit hole is having their whole mind rewired, rebalanced, I would say, righted, because the fiat mind is inverse. We're not supposed to be living that way. And that can cause division between husbands, wives, brothers, sisters, aunties, uncles, family units. So there's that to take note of as well. And I just want to, have you noticed anything like that within your own journey? How your relationship has changed with certain people?
I have always, in the beginning, I tried to orange pill people, but I stopped really quickly, and because I didn't want to interrupt my personal relationships. What I did is talk constantly about it, but stopped if I annoyed someone. And then I shifted because of that, because I annoyed more and more people. Because of that, I shifted more online. And people, they still watched my things on Instagram, on Twitter and stuff like that, but on their own time. And I actually got to know that then people got orange pilled and they came to me, and my three best friends, they're almost all in Bitcoin, like completely with 80%, 70% of their net worth in Bitcoin. My father, my mother, my sister, they're in Bitcoin. Sister is the hardest one to crack. And in the bigger family, I have a really big family. The people that are closest to me are the closest to Bitcoin because they are the most exposed to it. But yeah, it didn't impact my relationship that far. It's interesting with my girl. I came together with my girlfriend 2 years ago, and I was purposely hiding my Bitcoin as long as possible. So I didn't mention it even after like the third date. I think the fourth date, she asked the question because she saw something online. My profile I couldn't hide, and then we slowly talked about that. But I never orange pilled her. I never really explained anything to her because I was like, if she's really the one, if she's really someone I want to be long term with, she will get Bitcoin eventually. Those things come together. And now 2 years later, she's actually there where she kind of understands it, where she saves all her money in Bitcoin, and she's on her way to really getting orange pilled, and never forced it on her. So I don't know if you have some learnings around this topic, but I think not forcing it and still trying to expose them to Bitcoin is kind of what I try to do. Do you have any recommendations for maybe people listening that struggle with relationships with non-Bitcoiners?
Yeah, I always try and think about or ask first. If people ask me, I like, okay, what's your preferred method to learn? Do you like listening to podcasts? Do you like watching YouTube videos? Do you prefer to read? That's like step one. And then right, okay, I listen to podcasts all the time. I'm like, all right, okay, cool. Now I know I can send you some podcasts of things you might be interested in. But what are your hobbies? What do you like doing? Like what do you do at the weekends? Oh, I like to play football. I'm like, oh, really? Okay. What team do you support? Oh, this, that, and the other thing. Blah blah blah. Okay, I'll send you some podcasts with professional footballers if you like. I'm like, what? Who? So what? And this works really well with English people. It's like Kieran Gibbs. They're like, what? The Arsenal and England player? Like, yeah, he's a massive Bitcoiner. I've got a podcast with him. I can send you that podcast. And so is Seyfedin and Seyfedin Ammous. He has the Bitcoin podcast and he wrote a book called The Bitcoin Standard. So you'll get exposed to that as well. They're like, yeah, send me the links. I'd love to listen to it. I'm like, okay, fine. The other day, I was talking to a guy that told me his son was slowly getting into it. And I'm like, right, okay, well, what does he like? What's his, what's his thing? He's like, oh, he loves his cars, loves motor racing. I'm like, right, okay, does he know about Bitcoin racing? He's like, what? Bitcoin racing. They're here in the UK. Like they race around Brands Hatch and Snetterton doing the Mini Virtu Challenge. They follow around the British Touring Car Championship. I had no idea. I'm like, right, okay. I'll send you some podcasts that you can send on to your son with the Bitcoin racing team, and Once the season starts coming up again, they have a Bitcoin meetup at every event. So you can just get to Brands Hatch and you can get to these other races, and we can go and start hanging out together and learning about Bitcoin. And that will bring him much closer. So this is the kind of thing that, I mean, it could be music, and then I send them podcasts with musicians, because we have, the musicians now on Wavlake or Fountain. And that gets their interest. There's a way you can match someone's interest, because human beings love social proof. Every salesperson knows this. Every salesperson knows social proof is the foundation of in air quotes, a buying decision, and touch points. Any sales course will tell you this. And all of that is just based on human psychology. So if we understand human psychology and we can talk to the people that we truly love and care about, we already know what they're predisposed to, what they like, what they what sets them on fire, and you can send them interviews that are going to match their interest. So that built-in social proof. And if you know they prefer to read, then you send them an article, you send them a book. If you know they prefer podcasts, send them links or YouTube videos, whatever. And I find that that's a way more effective. Then you just wait for the questions to come back.
I love that peer-to-peer education system. I love that. I think you're also a big critic of the educational system, as I am, and I love if peer-to-peer is kind of an education system where you can actually teach someone something else. You also, I'm pretty sure that you homeschool your kids. Lauren, I think, was also in the podcast last time, and I think we briefly touched on that also. So you're doing homeschooling your kids till the beginning already, or?
No, we've done every form. We've done state education, Montessori style. We've done beach on the school. We've done.
What is Montessori style?
Montessori is much more focused on the individual and letting them try and learn through play rather than through curriculum, which is great. Then we've done state school. In different countries, in Singapore and in France. And we've done unschooling. We've done world schooling, where we took the kids traveling around the world for 2.5 years. So you're just literally learning day to day on the go. Whatever's on your doorstep, wherever you find yourself, that becomes your classroom. And currently in the UK, our two youngest, we found what's called a Sudbury Valley School, which again it puts the onus on the individual. It puts faith back in the actual fact that our species are built to learn. We're problem-solving machines, and we will get interested by certain things. And following a curriculum that is set for you, that you have to do under all circumstances at certain times of the day, is actually alternative education. That's the alternative system, not the natural learning way that the kids just learn what they're naturally interested in. So that takes the form where 3 days a week lessons are put on at the, in inverted commas, school, and the kids get the choice to go to those lessons if they want, if they're interested. But the kids are the ones that ask for these lessons and these teachers to be brought in themselves at the start of term, where they have meetings and discussions and say, right, yes, well, we want a math guy, we want a French teaching person, we want somebody to come and teach us how to do outdoor activities in the woodlands here. And sure enough, in a few weeks' time, those people are put in place. Then the kids opt into those lessons, and it's a mixed age group, and the only people in the classroom are the ones that have chosen to be there and are interested in that. So that is, as opposite to an education system as I could imagine. And that's what our two youngest are doing at the moment. The older two are flying away at the moment. One of them is already in university and studying there, and another one is doing some A-levels at a local college just like 10 minutes away.
Interesting. Yeah. So university is still the state one, or is it a private one?
That is a private one, and yeah, I think all the universities are private, and I'm happy to see that there seems to be a shift now where uh, it was weird. The last 20 years, it's been like you have to go to university. Like it never used to be that way. Certainly not in England. And the last 20 years, it's like, yeah, you're never going to get anywhere if you don't go to university. So people have been just going to university willy nilly, and even if they didn't want to be there, get through the 3 or 4 years, get themselves into debt, and then finally get out into the labor market. That seems to be changing now. That's good. My oldest daughter, she's chosen to go to university, but I don't think my other 3 kids will, and that's an interesting thing, and a good thing, because it isn't for everybody. It shouldn't be for everybody. Everybody is different, and we need as many differing skills as possible, not like the same 3 or 4 degrees that everybody's chasing after. It's like inflation, right? Everybody's got these 3 or 4 degrees that apparently got to guarantee you a job once you get out, but yeah, well, supply and demand doesn't work that way.
Absolutely, yeah, and you students usually learn that once they try to find a job and they have some degree and they thought, like, yeah, I will definitely get something. And I heard a lot of stories around that also in Austria. We also the unemployment rate is kind of rising here, and so the stories of that sorts get bigger, where they have the university degree, and with like 26, 27, 28 years old, for the first time ever, they try to work, and then it's like really hard to find jobs because you're like a 26, 27-year-old man, and you have no experience in the workplace, but you have some degree which may or may not apply to your work, and if it applies, probably just like a percentage, and then they have to still educate you on things.
Mm-hmm.
So it's an interesting thing. You're also a parent of 4, as you just said, and I think most Bitcoiners are parents. I think there's a really high correlation between being a Bitcoiner and being a parent. How would you define a Bitcoiner parent? I don't know if you have outside of Bitcoin also parent friends that are non-Bitcoiners, and do you see some differences there?
Yes, I do. Yeah, and I've seen a whole host of different Bitcoin families, some that have very little babies or are about to have babies. And then there are some like kind of more my age group, but, I'm nearing 50 now and found Bitcoin after I'd already had my kids. And there are families out there as well that I meet on the conference circuit when we're doing that, already had kids and then found Bitcoin, and then went through the mind virus and the change. So what you mainly notice, the difference is a calmness. And again, this comes back to what I was talking about, being able to plan for the future and not having that too many worries about the future, because Bitcoiners when they look at their families and they look at their kids, they know like the safety net is there. It's fine. Go out into the world, try, and you will fail and you will pick yourself up. Nothing's going to work first time. That's understood. Whereas in like the more fiat kind of thinking world, it's like, go to university, go. You need straight A's in your GCSEs or whatever you call them in equivalent, SATs. I don't know what they called across Europe, le bac or brevet in French. You need straight A's for all of that. And then you've got to go to university. And then you need like the top degree. And then it's also got to be at the top university, blah, blah, blah. And it's just stress, and pressure on the kid and trauma on the kid. And it's really depressing to see the effect that has on kids. You've got 11-year-olds here in the UK where they sit this test. It's called the 11 plus, or at least it used to be. And that will define their secondary schooling, and that will define their A levels, and that will define their university. Put all that pressure on a 10-and-a-half-year-old kid that just wants to play football in the garden and kick a ball against a fence or play on his gaming machine or ride his bike around. Like, this is nonsense. But that is what happens. And so I see a complete difference now in Bitcoiner parents. They're way more relaxed. They've gone through, the understanding, the human action, and they've the Austrian method, the business cycle. They understand Bitcoin. They understand the halving cycle. They understand their purchasing power is going to be going up, and they understand that they're becoming more and more bulletproof each day from this system, and that will be passed down to their kids. Actions speak louder than words. That their kids will pick up on these vibes, and just speaking to the kids around the conferences as well. Completely different experience talking to Bitcoiner kids than just kids that are going through the grinder of the fiat system and the fiat education system.
Interesting. Yeah, it's also the sports of it, as you said, they're just playing outside and not having the pressure and just like experiencing life. It's really interesting to see. What part does sports play in your and your family's life? Are you big on that?
Yeah, my son is very much into his football, so always supporting him in that. And my daughters really loved, when we lived in France, they really loved horse riding. That was a very accessible sport where we were living, because we were in the countryside and there were horses everywhere and riding stables everywhere. So it was very easy to get them on horseback. So now we've changed location. That's going to be a project for 2025, finding them, the nearest stables come spring, when it becomes a little bit warmer for them to be out there. And that's the main thing. For me, I love golf. Grew up playing football, but I can't do that to my body anymore. And, watching it has become difficult because, again, you go through, I don't know if you've ever experienced this, but going through, I used to love watching all kinds of sports. But now going through Bitcoin, entering the Bitcoin rabbit hole, you can see all of the fiat crap that's crept into the sport, and the inflated wages, and even the fiat behavior of the players, and the bread and circuses aspect of it. Give them bread and circuses, they will not revolt. But I'm a big fan of golf, and I like just being out there, not in the winter. So I'm looking forward to some spring and some summer to be out and playing and connecting with more Bitcoiners that like to play golf, because that's the best thing you can do. Get out on the golf course with a bunch of Bitcoiners and spend 4 or 5 hours out in the fresh air and nature, talking, having fun. Yeah, I love that.
Absolutely. I think there's currently a Bitcoin thing going on in El Salvador with golf.
Yep.
I overheard something. I'm not there, but it's an interesting one.
Yeah, Max and Stacy are running a golf competition over there.
Nice.
And that's being helped. Chris and Frida Bobe are helping that. The Bitcoin Sports Network that they've put together. So look out for that. Like, there'll be more and more things like this. There'll be football tournaments. Coach Carbon in the UK, he does the Bitcoin Ballers. You've now got the Bulgarian football team, Plovdiv. Sorry, George, I'm mispronouncing it, but he's doing great work over there. Like I mentioned earlier, we've got the Bitcoin racing team. Now we have these Bitcoin golf tournaments going on all over the place. It's another way that the cultural aspect of Bitcoin is growing. And that is really important, because when you have the cultural side of things, that's when the shift really starts happening. And that's with artwork. I mean, go to any conference, you'll see an art gallery now. It's without doubt, there will be an art gallery at a Bitcoin conference. And they're amazing. Even some meetups, they have, all right, and where are the artists? Where are the local artists? Where's their work? And I always love seeing that. It's brilliant.
Absolutely. Yeah, I never thought about that, but yeah, actually every conference I went to in 2024 had some sort of art gallery, usually at the entrance or somewhere at the main stage. I love that. Yeah. I never thought about that perspective.
All we're missing right now is, and I think Avi's working on this, is a a stage show, a Broadway style stage show, play, musical, because we've got Bitcoin films, that's been done. Documentaries have been done. Books, obviously, fiction and non-fiction have been done. Comic books have also been done as well. There's some Bitcoin comic books out there. Kids' books have been done. YouTube videos, podcasts, audio's been done. Music's been done. Poetry is there Bitcoin poetry out there?
I think some tweets I saw, but I don't know if it's if this is already poetry, where you have like some short lines of some famous poet. But yeah, like that's probably out there, but I've not researched that actually.
So yeah, artwork has been done. Statues have been done. Right? It's really incredible to see. So and more of it, please. You cannot stop this train. People are going to bring their ideas to this.
There's a Bitcoin site at Hello Poetry, so
there you go.
There's some poetry going on.
Philosophy has been done, right? The amount of philosophizing that goes on around Bitcoin is also great to see.
Absolutely. What wish do you have for the community? If you could wish something for the Bitcoin community, is there anything that you would wish for?
Good question. I don't think so. I think we got this, honestly. I think we're exactly where we need to be. Bitcoin is here. More and more people are finding it each day. Come what may. No, I wouldn't wish for any change. I think Bitcoin is, and that's enough, and we'll figure it out from there.
Really cool. One question that I ask each and every one of my guests is, what can we learn from you besides Bitcoin?
Well, I have a book called Choose Life, which I wrote in 2017. And it's a book about how my wife and I come to the very difficult decision of me quitting my job, getting out of my career, taking our 4 kids out of school who were aged 8, 6, and 2 3-year-old twins at that time, and leaving a country in which we'd lived, had all of our children, got married, and we'd lived there for 15 years, and that was Singapore. Throw in the rental keys and at our landlord, cancel the contract, get on a plane and go start traveling with our kids. And we did that for 2.5 years. The book it's not a how-to, it's kind of like how we did. And what I found since writing it and releasing it, actually what I found, obviously I didn't realize this would ever happen. When I wrote the book, I was writing the book between 2015, 2017. So I was going down the Bitcoin rabbit hole. I was going down the education, homeschool, unschool, world school rabbit hole as well at the same time. And we were living together, the 4 of us, from country to country, home swap to home swap. That's how we did it, by the way. We home swapped our way around the world. So our accommodation costs were pretty much zero. Otherwise, it would have been very, very, very costly to rent Airbnb or hotel to shelter 6 people. But that's all explained in the book. And what I realized was, we'd never felt more free ever. And that taste of freedom, once you felt it, like you didn't belong to any particular country. You were just a perpetual tourist, and you had none of the everyday normal pressures on you. And I suddenly realized, well, this is actually life, not what I was living before. And a lot of people would tell me, all right, Dan, you've done this now. When are you going to come back to real life? And like, this is real life, guys. This is it. Like, what the alternative is sitting at a desk 11 hours a day. That's not life. And being able to spend as much time with your family and do what you want, when you want, how you want, and be left alone and have the freedom, that's life. And I just fell into that by mistake. And I want other people to taste that, to be able to do it. And I just need to give them, again, social proof. Yeah, I did it at the age of 38 with 4 kids and was married. Didn't go bankrupt, didn't end up living under a bridge. And so can you. And people that have read the book have, they've got a lot out of it, and I get a lot of nice feedback. Funnily enough, the best feedback I ever got was from a guy in Prague. He came and found me when I was over at the book stand signing books. And he said, Daniel, I read your book. I'm like, oh, yeah, great, thanks. I hope you enjoyed it. Yeah, I hated it. I'm like, okay. Always down for some feedback. What was the problem? He's like, well, it made me realize with every single page that you were completely destroying every single stupid fucking excuse I'd been giving myself to not live this kind of life. So I wanted to let you know that I quit my job. I threw it in, and I've been traveling for the last 3 months, and here I am now in Prague, and these are my plans. I'm like, wow, that's amazing. So I'm really glad that people have found a lot of value from it. And if anybody didn't know about that book, then you can go and get it from bitcoinbook.shop. Please don't go get it off Amazon. Go and get it off of bitcoinbook.shop, because they are a Bitcoin company, and you can pay in Bitcoin or fiat if you need to. And you can use the code BITTEN and get a 10% discount. But don't just buy that book. Like we said at the beginning, it's all about education. There are a ton of other books on there, all Bitcoin books or Bitcoin related books. Get 3 or 4, like 40, $50, whatever it is. Use the code BITTEN, get that discount. That $50 you spend at bitcoinbook.shop could change the rest of your life. And people think about, oh yeah, I've got to go to education. Like we're talking, I've got to go to university, get my education, get my degree. It's going to cost me 50 grand a year, 200 grand. Or you could buy 4 books for $50 and completely change your life and end up living a much more fruitful life and gaining the conviction that you need to gain in Bitcoin to be able to, set yourself up for the future. So yeah, I would say that's it. Go pick up a book, and it's available in English and in Spanish.
Reading book is kind of a superpower. You can really absorb information in a formatted, nice, condensed way, where it's, yeah, you can also do it without books, but it will be a way harder life, and you might not get to where you could have been with some book and with some proper education, with basically learning from other people's mistakes and from other people learning. Yeah, it's really, really cool. I guess this had a pretty huge impact on your family, and probably it's really hard to say it in like one answer. What was like the main impact it had on your family? But maybe if you can try, like, what was the one thing that it really changed for your whole family?
From doing the traveling together, we found the renewed faith in humanity. That was incredible. That was really wonderful, and we all felt that because we were perpetual tourists, just blowing in the wind and turning up completely, as complete strangers, and because we were home swapping as well. We would be introduced. So we'd stay in these people's houses whilst they were on holiday, or sometimes it would be in like a small part of the house, or they might have a house on the grounds, and being completely taken in under people's wing and realizing that 99.9% of the people on this planet that we call human beings are incredibly wonderful, kind, generous, honest people. And I think this is why we are driven so much to share this message of Bitcoin, because we know it innately in us that everybody else is hurting in that other system and they can't get out of it. And this is the escape hatch. So that was the main thing. Yeah, just been blown away by the friendliness of, and in any country as well, wherever we went, we were just, the amount of people that helped us in certain situations, just wonderful. That was one real great thing, because up until that point, I'd 18 years in traditional financial markets. I had a pretty low opinion of people.
The
So that will
renewed
change.
faith in people, in humanity. That's great. I love that. Really cool. Perfect. And we have an end routine in the podcast. It's a big change of pace. That question, the end routine of the podcast, where the previous guest is asking a question for the next guest without knowing who the next guest actually is. And your question from the previous guest is, how many Bitcoin will Trump stack for the USA in the next 4 years? It's a hard topic change.
Yeah. Well, there's all of this talk about him setting up a Bitcoin reserve, right? And whether he's going to sign the bill on his first day in office and all of this kind of stuff. I mean, I don't know. And honestly, it doesn't matter. And then the more philosophical kind of answer is how's it going to ever be owned, like officially? Who's going to have those keys? So all right, I guess to kind of rephrase the question, how many US dollars will be converted into Bitcoin under Trump? Who knows, man? Who knows? A lot, I guess, because I do think that they will do it. Yeah. As you can see, I don't spend too much time thinking about what politicians are going to do.
Probably a good idea.
Yeah, because they never do what they say, that's for sure. So, yeah, well, let's wait and see. Sorry, I couldn't be more specific.
I think that answer is great. I personally hope they're not buying a lot, because I want people and plebs to buy Bitcoin and not nation states and politicians. But yeah, thank you so much, Daniel, for being on the show. Before I let you go, if someone doesn't know you, if someone wants to find you, where can people find you, ask you questions, and reach out to you?
Sure. So my podcast is called Once Bitten. Please go and listen to that on Fountain app. I mean, of course, it is on Spotify, and I do upload it to YouTube as well, and it is on Google Pods and Apple Pods. But like I said before, with the books, let's change our buying habits. So buy books from bitcoinbook.shop, listen to podcasts, this one included, on Fountain app, because that's been built out by Bitcoiners for Bitcoiners. And we need to support these Bitcoin companies, because nobody else will. And if we don't, who will? So please go and find it on Fountain app. And yeah, I think that's probably the best place. Twitter, I'm still on Twitter. It's at Princey21M, and over on Nostr as well. You'll find my NPub on my Twitter profile, I believe.
Really cool. Perfect. And thank you so much, Daniel, for being on the show. And also shout out, I'm also on Fountain for everyone that's listening. Fountain, I know it's a small amount of the overall audience, but I do appreciate the comments there, and I love the engagement there. So thank you so much, everyone watching and listening, for joining us today. As always, I'll be back tomorrow with another episode. Bye-bye.